thank you for taking time out of your day to come to our License to Parenting program. I can appreciate how cold it is outside, so thank you very much for coming. I'd like to first ask Cindy and Alicia to come for the acknowledgement of country.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. At Reggio Emilia, we would like to acknowledge the traditional landowners of Australia. We would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Darug Nation and extend that respect to all Aboriginals within the community. Thank you.
So we have Dr. Amanda Mullins coming to speak to you today about the License to Parenting program. Dr. Amanda is a doctor of clinical psychology. She specialises in childhood development. She's also the director of Mindwork Psychology, an award-winning practice. She's also a parent herself, so can definitely relate to a lot of what she will be speaking to you about today. The License to Parenting program was created because we really believe that the relationship that parents have with their children can essentially affect the development for the rest of their life. So we, at Reggio, we're trying to develop a program that will enhance the relationship with parents and children, and also to nurture that sort of development. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Amanda to the stage.
Good morning. Thank you for so many of you coming this morning. I know getting up early, and if you're all parents, getting out your house is quite a challenge. So congratulations on making it here. I hope you get some coffee in peace this morning and some nice time to yourself. I'm really excited to be here to talk about the launch of the parenting program at Reggio Emilia. It makes me really proud to be invited to tell you about it because it's very close to my heart too. The concepts that you'll see inside the book are some of the things that we talk about to parents who come to our practice. They're really important. And it fills me with great pleasure and pride to be associated with a chain of preschools that takes this stuff so seriously. So it's not just about popping your child in care for the day, but it's thinking about these centres, how they enrich your child's life, but also that they're thinking about you and how you might enrich your child's life too. So this morning I'm pretty much going to focus on these beautiful booklets. Do you all have one? You do. And can you all hear me up the back? Yes. If I talk too quickly, I am Scottish, I get a bit excited and start talking really fast. Stick your hand up and let me know. I'm going to talk for a while, then we're going to have a question and answer session at the end where you can ask me any questions that you might have. So let's start thinking about the License to Parent program. It's made up of 4 sections. And they might sound like they're different, but they're actually very similar. So one of the sections is parenting. And I don't know about you, but when I became a parent, it was quite different to what I thought it might be like. Yeah. I'm not sure what I thought parenting would be like. I kind of had an idea in my head that I'd be pregnant, and it would be really cool, and I'd take a lot of nice pictures. And then I'd get this adorable baby, and I'd take a lot more pictures, and it would be lovely, and I'd push a pram, and it would be wonderful. And it certainly was. But it was also really challenging, and it forced me to grow as a person. So parenting is an important part of this booklet. It's about how you grow as a person, how parenting changes you and makes you rethink the things in your life that are important. The second thing we're going to talk about is child development. The thing about parenting is just as you master one stage of parenting, your child develops. And then they change, and you have to change your parenting. And that's really tricky. So we're going to talk a little bit about child development and how knowing that can help you to predict what you need to do. We're also going to talk about child behaviour. Now obviously child behaviour is linked to child development. Your child's behaviour will change as they grow and as they develop. But your child's behaviour is also linked to how you parent your children. It's linked to you as a parent because of your genetic heritage that you pass down. But it's also, your child's behaviour is linked to the values you have within your family, to the time that you spend, to the things that you do, to how you shape your child too. So that's an incredibly special thing. So your child experiences are the final thing that we'll talk about today. The great thing about parents is we get to choose a lot of the experiences that our children have. We get to pick which preschool they go to, which centre. We get to pick something like Reggio Emilia, which takes these things with passion. But also, our children have experiences with us every single day. From the moment they wake up until the moment they go to bed at night, they have experiences. And if you've got babies or toddlers, they're probably still having experiences with you right through the night too. So the License to Parent program is about building a strong connection with your child. Nothing more and nothing less. It's about supporting you to become the best parent that you can so that you can raise great children. And how do you do that? It's about building a strong connection by spending quality time. So you'll notice in the booklet the launch of Friday Connections. On a Friday afternoon across all centres, there's an opportunity for you to come in, if you can, between 4:30 and 5:30 and hang out with your children. And do those really fun things. Get involved in activities which are educator-led, so you don't have to do any prep work. You can come in and have some fun. You can get down and you can get on your child's level. And that's kind of nice. It's a nice way to connect with your child, but as a parent, it's also a fantastic way to set yourself up for the weekend. If you've been working all day, you know, that time, it's like your glass of wine time, right? On a Friday afternoon, time with your child. So it's in every centre, and it's a chance for you to spend one-on-one time with your child. Now I do know, because I'm a working parent, that not everyone will be able to make Friday Connections. So this isn't about making you guilty. It's just about putting in place ways that the centre can support you. So let's talk about things that you can do too, outside of Friday afternoons. And we're going to start with parenting. Now I'd like you just to take a second and think about parenting. You're probably thinking about your own parenting. But what I want you to do is think about your family of origin. I want you to think about your parents. What were they like? What kind of person have you become because of your parents? What values did your parents have? You know, in my family, honesty was a really big thing. You could get in all kinds of trouble, and you could get away with almost anything, but if you lied to my mum, it was the end. Because honesty was a really highly prized value in my family. Now, it's not a highly prized value in every single family. In your family, there might be other values that are higher. Things like kindness. Perhaps your family values kindness. Perhaps your family values other things. So take a second and think about what your parents valued. What did they pass down to you? And if your parents pass some values to you, what are you going to pass to your children? Do you want to pass down the same values? I certainly like the value of honesty. But in my family, kindness is actually higher than honesty. So if my kids had to choose between being kind or being honest, I want them to pick kindness. I still want them to be honest too. But it's important to know what values I have, because once I know what I value, I can choose what I want my kids to value. What other values might you have? Does anyone have any that they'd like to share? Does anything pop up for people when they think about this stuff?
Respect.
Respect. It's a really important one, isn't it? Anything else?
Humility.
Humility, yes. That's a beautiful one, isn't it? Any others?
Equality and treating the other person with actually links into respect, yes, but even treating the child as an equal in having him have his say.
Letting your child have a say?
Not have a say in every decision, but yes.
Not in every decision, but letting your child have a say. It's really important, letting your child have a voice.
Yeah, have a voice and at least hear him out, because he will otherwise grow up to be every time feeling that he cannot talk, whereas I think it's early on important for him to be able to speak his mind.
Absolutely. So you're making an important point here, isn't it? When we know our values, we can start to parent that way. So when we value our child having a voice, it influences how we parent. Because then we take the time to give our child a voice if it's something that we value. When we value kindness, it helps me to pause and reflect on how I want to parent. So I think it's very important to think about your values so that you're clear on them. Values tend not to change. They're the things that we hold really dear to us, and when we get them wrong, when we act out of line with our values, it tends to really bother us. So it's important to think about how you'll shape your children, because your parents' values, the ones that our parents put inside us, I find it really difficult to lie because my mum prized honesty. It's really difficult. I was raised with that value for 20 years while I lived at home. It's very hard to shake off a value that your parents give you. So parenting is hard, right? I mean, it's filled with joy and it's really special, but it's also hard. So in parenting, in the program, in the booklets, you'll see there's a section about parenting. And we encourage you to think about yourself and how you want to be as a parent. And that's also about your skills and your competence. Now, I don't know about you, but when I went to school and then university, and I went to university for 8 years to become a doctor of clinical psychology, it's a long time. I learned all about child development. I learned all about research and all about theory, and at no point did I learn how to be a parent. It's totally different. And so even for me, even though I know all the research on child development, and you think that might make it easier, I'm not sure that it does, because parenting is a skill that's learned. And you can read all the books in the world, but it's something that comes through experience, isn't it? So I want to encourage you to be self-compassionate on your journey as a parent. You're not born as an expert parent. And I like to think that I'm quite good at parenting young children. The problem is that my children have come past this and now they're in primary school. And my eldest has hit high school. So much as I might be a parent at that stage, I'm working out what to do at the next stage. We just become an expert and our children change. And that's good, because it means we're always learning. So as we think about being parents, self-compassion and support is really important. Joining a community of like-minded educators and families who support each other is really important. Doing the parenting journey alone is incredibly hard. Up here you'll see there's a picture of someone's brain firing off. I love this. Because as a parent, we have to be able to emotionally regulate ourselves. Later this morning we're going to talk about your children's emotional regulation and their behaviour and their ability to do those things. Well, those children, they're just learning and developing skills. And what about you? What are your skills like for dealing with a tantrum in your child? How many times have you practiced being at the supermarket while your child lies on the ground throwing a tantrum and embarrassing you? How many times have you been to class where they taught you about how to remain patient as your child takes her seatbelt off for the 150th time? Where did you learn to function with no sleep at all? Where did you learn to remain patient while you were sick yourself and your child's sick and needs you? Where did you learn that level of kindness and compassion? Well, I don't know that any of us have learned it. I think that's something that will develop. Our children will teach us it. They will teach us to have these skills of patience and compassion through the experiences that they share with us. So I do want you to think about your own emotional regulation. As you learn new skills, it's pretty hard. And if you're learning new skills and you're sleep deprived, it's even harder. So to do effective parenting, you need to take good care of yourself before you can take good care of your child. There's a lovely phrase called putting your own gas mask on first. You know, if you're on an airplane and those little masks drop from the ceiling, the stewards always tell you you've got to put yours on first before you help anyone else. Well, that's true in parenting. If you're a tired parent, you might be a cranky parent. If you're feeding your children but you're forgetting to eat yourself, or you're just eating the scraps from your child's plate because it's quicker and easier, that's not good self-care. And when we do good self-care, we've got much more energy for the path that we are on. Parenting isn't just all about the children, it's about our growth too. So self-compassion is an incredibly important part of parenting. And when we're compassionate to ourselves and look after ourselves, it gives us a little bit of time to become good role models. It's incredibly hard to be a good role model when you're flat out, isn't it? It's much easier to be a good role model when you have 5 minutes to sit down and think about what you want to do. And parenting doesn't always give you 5 minutes to sit down and think about how you want to parent. Parenting sometimes feels like being a paramedic, doesn't it? The sirens are on, you're racing to the scene, your kid's acting out, thinking, what shall I do? Oh my gosh. Parenting is really hard. And just like being a paramedic, sometimes you've never seen these things before. You know, sometimes when you walk into that room, you know, when I walked into the room and my daughter had discovered pseudocran, not just discovered it, but how to take the lid off a full tub. And there's a lot of giggles because I'm thinking some of your kids might have discovered it too. But you know, that stuff is not parent friendly. It sticks everywhere, doesn't it? And when you're about to go somewhere and your kids discovered it and covered their beautiful new clothes in it, and your carpet, and the dog, it's really hard to stay emotionally regulated. I mean, it's funny now because years have passed. But at the time, it's challenging. So children test us, and taking the time out to make sure that we've got the resources to be ready is important. So when you think about a paramedic, the last thing that you want when a paramedic arrives to help you is a stressed out, sleep deprived paramedic who's not had any food. You want that paramedic to be fresh on shift. Yeah? You want them to be calm. You want them to assess the situation. You want them to have the skills and the resources to help you. Paramedic parenting is one of my key phrases for parents. I think it's really important. I encourage you all to make sure that you look after yourself so that you can respond to the natural crises that will occur through your children's lives. Because what we don't want is a paramedic arriving to the scene and losing it. Sometimes, when I was a parent, I did lose it. So you're not going to be 100% perfect. But it's easier to aspire to do paramedic parenting when you're rested. So we talked a little bit, haven't we, about being a parent, about your values, what that might look like, how you'd like to parent. In an ideal world, how we take really good self-care of ourselves and make sure that we are in a position to do the kind of parenting that we want. So we find a great centre for our kids to be in, we find a great job that satisfies us, and we have these delightful children. And then this thing happens called children's behaviour. You know the bit that we don't take photographs of? So, the most important lesson to take away today is that your child learns skills. Children are not born knowing how to behave. They are born knowing how to cry. That's how they communicate with you. And they are born with a need to explore the world. But they're certainly not born knowing how to say please or thank you. And they're not born with the skills of patience. They have not developed those. They don't know how to wait their turn. Often they've never experienced feelings like jealousy or resentment. So sometimes when they're with other kids and the other child takes their toy and they have a big surge of feelings, they get overwhelmed. They do all kinds of crazy things, don't they? Like bite other kids, scratch them, punch them, lie on the floor, yell and scream. Those things seem weird to us, but we used to do them too. When we were tiny, before our parents trained it out of us. So I don't know about you, but it still crosses my mind occasionally that I would like to punch people, or bite them, or just lie on the floor and have a really good tantrum. But I don't do it, or at least not in public. So children's behaviour, it's important to understand why our children act out. It's usually because they lack skill. They just haven't developed it. The first time that you experience jealousy, what do you do with that? Even as an adult, when I'm jealous, and it happens less the older that I get, but even as an adult, when I have feelings like jealousy, they're rare. You don't get a lot of practice with these things. They're hard. It makes you uncomfortable. Well, think about how hard it is for us as an adult, and then think about what that's like for your child. So children definitely haven't experienced as many emotions as us. They haven't tried out ways of coping. They're still experimenting. They still need a lot of role modelling from us. And also in terms of children, you know, they just want to try out new things and find out what works. What they're trying to do is work out what will get their needs met. So it might be that they lack communication skills. They don't know how to say please. Or perhaps you've taught them how to say please, but they can't remember. Or in that moment, they've got a big emotion and they just don't remember. Maybe they'll remember when they're calm. Maybe once they've practiced it 379 times, they'll just start remembering it all the time. Or maybe it won't be 379 times. Maybe your child's brain needs to practice it 667 times before it becomes automatic. Because if you think about it, we all learn at different paces. When I learned to drive, it took me 2 attempts to pass my driving test. You know, my brother had a couple of lessons and passed it straight away. It was really annoying. Children learn how to say please and thank you at different times. Sometimes you go down to the centres and you see these adorable little kids with great manners really early. That was not my brother. He was just good at the driving test. I was the one with the manners. Okay, so children, they lack effective communication skills, but they also develop at different rates. My brother has learned how to say please and thank you. It did take a while, but he got there. They want your attention. Sometimes children don't know how to get our attention. A really effective way is to have a tantrum, because everyone looks. Or they just want to try something. They want to be independent. They want to have a go. You're saying no and they don't like it. It's 7 o'clock at night and they decide that they really want to go in the sandpit and create something, but it's bedtime. And they're going to throw a fit. So children sometimes want to do things at their pace. It's challenging to fit to the adult world. So sometimes they don't understand the rules, and sometimes they're just tired. So I've put down the bottom here that sometimes they're tired and sometimes they're having big emotions. Big emotions really get in the way of thinking. Now I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I want you to think about the last time that you lost it. And you're all putting these expressions on your face like, I never lose it. But I know that you do. So think about it. Who did you lose it with? And what did you do? What was it like? Did you yell? Did you stay really silent but fume inside? Could you not think what to say? Did you give them the evil eye? Did you look away? Did you walk away? How did you handle conflict? Because when children have big emotions, they don't handle it very well at all. But that's no surprise, because you meet any adult in a conflict situation, they don't handle it well either. So children, when they have big emotions, just don't know how to handle them. But often we don't know how to model them either, because we're not so good. So it's important to take some time to think about that. Sometimes our children are scared. Children can be scared of all kinds of things. Some of the kids that come to see me at the practice are scared of things that adults are not scared of. They can be weird and they can be bizarre, because kids' minds are different to adult minds. So when I was a kid, it was a long time ago, and the movie Jaws came out. Now, Jaws would not scare any child born after the year 2000 because the graphics are terrible. Okay? But I was not a child in that time. So when I was born and then Jaws came out, someone let me watch it. Probably because I asked to, or maybe I went behind their back and watched it anyway. But after I watched Jaws, I developed the belief that a shark would swim to my house in Scotland, down the pipes that connected to the toilet. And if I went to the toilet, a shark would eat me. Now, I vividly remember that. Isn't that crazy? Can a shark possibly swim down to your toilet and take you? No. But I'd never seen Jaws before. I didn't know there was such things as big sharks that ate people. I'm from Scotland, we don't have that stuff. It really scared me. It scared me and it turned off my ability to have rational thought. So when your kids are scared, they're not thinking rationally. It did not matter how often my mum told me that sharks could not come out of toilets, because I was scared that they would. Aren't our minds funny? What are your kids scared of? You know, anxiety is a normal thing. So if you've got a baby, they're probably scared of things like loud noises. They're probably scared of strangers, heights. When you get a preschooler, they get scared of other things. Being on their own. They start to get scared of the dark. Some preschoolers that I work with, they're scared of things like zombies. One kid had been on YouTube and he was really scared of sinkholes. Someone else had been on YouTube. YouTube is great for getting fears. If I was a kid nowadays, it wouldn't be Jaws, it would be something off YouTube that I would find to be scared of. But kids are scared of things like zombies, sinkholes, ghosts, social situations. As we get older, our fears change. That's because your brain changes too. So children have what we call age-appropriate fears. When you are scared out of your mind, you do weird stuff. Like I wouldn't go to the toilet. Eventually I had to, but I was scared and I'd bolt from the toilet afterwards. Like a crazy, crazy young girl. Your kids probably do crazy stuff too, right? Because they're scared. I no longer believe that Jaws will get me, by the way. My brain has developed enough to understand that sharks don't come down toilets. But your child might not be well developed enough to understand that ghosts are not real. They might not have enough understanding to appreciate that when you go to work, you're definitely coming back at the end of the day. They might not know that when they have one tough day playing with a friend and the friend says, I don't like you, that tomorrow will be different. That they'll be able to make a friend tomorrow. They don't have our knowledge. And it's important not to expect them to have our knowledge and to kind of go with the flow with anxiety. I have never met a human being who doesn't experience anxiety. And age-appropriate anxiety happens to us all. Was anyone else worried about Jaws, or was that just mine? Oh, it's just mine, okay. So anxiety problems. Anxiety is normal, just like joy is normal. Pride is normal. Feeling happy is normal. Feeling sad is normal. Feeling scared is just a part of life, and we have to learn how to navigate every single feeling. Now, the better your parent is with feelings, the better you're going to be with feelings as a child, because your parents are going to show you what to do with them. If your parents are pretty much just having tantrums, that's going to be challenging for you because they're not going to show you what to do. The reason I popped anxiety on here is to remind parents that anxiety is a normal part of growing up. Psychologists, we tend to worry if anxiety persists for more than a period of time, usually 4 to 6 months. So if your child is scared of being on their own, it's actually appropriate. But if it persists for a very long time, we want you to get some help for your child. Anxiety is learned as well. So though it can be based on temperament and different things, children can learn to be anxious. They can learn to do things that maintain their anxiety. So allow it, but keep an eye on it. Let it just come, peak, and fade back out. And if it doesn't, then that's a good chance for you to go and just talk to someone and get some help. So how should you communicate with your child? Well, if you've got a baby, it's not hard, right? They're wired to pay attention. Their brains are wired for you. So we know that babies right after birth can recognise mum's voice. We know that they look for you. We know that toddlers are learning to speak. Their language centres come online in their brain. And they're learning all about language. But it takes quite a while, doesn't it, to learn words, to string them together into sentences, then turn those into paragraphs, and remember to add please and thank you. It takes a while to string it all together. By the time your child's a preschooler, they are learning those basic rules. But when they're a baby and when they're a toddler, they're pretty much too early to do things like say please and thank you. They can't remember it all the time. By the time they're in primary school, they're getting it most of the time. Then they forget again when they go to high school. And then they emerge out into adulthood, and hopefully we remember most of the time. So you can help your child because you are the primary role model. So what do you model? You're the primary role model. In the next slides, I'm going to show you a phrase that I love. It's called neurons that fire together, wire together. It's a phrase from neuropsychology. So neurons that fire together, wire together. And we're talking about those little things in your brain, the neurons. And that's important because your kids' brains are firing neurons all day. Does everyone know what a neuron is? If you don't know, do not be embarrassed. Just stick your hand up so I can get an idea. Has everyone heard of them? A few people don't know. I'm going to draw you a really bad picture over here of what a neuron might look like. It's a pretty poor drawing. If I was in a science exam, I might not get a good mark. But it is as simple as that. A neuron is a simple thing. But your child, when they're born, has 300 trillion of them in their brain. That's a lot, right? Not only do they have 300 trillion of these things, but they all make up to about 1,000 new friends. So they join together to form a neural network. And they join together through the experiences that we have, through the 5 senses. So they join together through experience. That's a really cool thing. When you give your child an experience, you are shaping their neural networks. Now the brain is neuroplastic. Over the first 7 to 9 years of life, it's bathed in chemicals that cause these neurons to make friends. So when you have a small child that do stuff like this, they get the pen and they're really excited. Now you notice I wasn't excited when I got the pen. I took it, wrote on the board, capped it and put it back. Small children don't have my brain. Their brains are making connections. They are so excited. They're like, wow, look at this. Check it out. It made a noise. They're excited. They didn't know it would make a noise. And not only that, but then they're like, oh, hold on. Did you hear that it was different on the carpet? And you're looking at them thinking, what's going on there? But they're excited. You know, your brain's not swimming in these neurochemicals, but theirs is. They're really excited. And then they take the lid off. That's always a scary moment for parents, isn't it? Because, you know, we've had a lot of training, haven't we? But our children haven't. So when they get the lid off, their little brains are like, wow, what will happen? What can I try it on? What will happen when I try it over here? Or down here? Or on my skin? Or anywhere else? How about my baby brother or sister? So they get excited. It's a great stage of development, isn't it? Like, I think one of the saddest things is that as adults, we're not like this, are we? When's the last time you got excited about a flipboard pen? Like, it just doesn't happen. Life is a little bit more boring when you're a grown-up. That's because neurons that fire together, wire together. And over time, what I've done is fire up a neural network that works automatically. I no longer fire a lot of neurons when I pick up a pen. I just fire enough to go and get the job done. I'm no longer curious. I don't wonder about all the things that it could do. It doesn't really cross my mind that it could be in this aisle. Only when I'm presenting, because I use it as an example. But it does cross your child's mind. because those neurons are growing and forming, and they are supposed to. So childhood development is a time when the brain is changing. It is the most important time of your child's life. Now when they're older, they're going to have other most important times too. We used to think it was the most important time of your child's life, because we used to think that when you got to age 26, your brain was kind of fixed. Whatever you'd learned up to age 26, that was the peak. And it's kind of downhill from there. Thankfully, we've discovered that that's not true at all. When we get to 26, it's harder to change, but it's not impossible. Your brain is neuroplastic, and it can rewire itself for your whole life. But think about this. Most adults don't rewire their brains because it's effortful. Because to change your brain as an adult, you will have to learn something. You will have to be interested. Is anyone here interested in pen? Your children are interested in everything. Every single thing. Their attention is different to ours. They notice things that we don't. It's so exciting. And it gives us an opportunity to shape our children. So how can we shape them based on the idea that neurons that fire together wire together? Well, that idea that when you ask for something, you finish your sentence with the word please seems very simple, doesn't it? You would think that that would be easy to wire in.
So your child says, "Can I have a pancake?" You say, "Please." And those neurons have fired together and you're like, job done. Except for they don't remember. Because neurons that fire together wire together, but your kids are firing a lot of neurons. And they're learning a lot of different types of sentences. So sometimes we're going to have to do good modelling and give them repeated experiences. So you'll see on here that I've put consistency as one of the key things. We need to do things with our kids over and over and over and over again until one day they'll pick up the pen and just write on paper. It just doesn't occur to them to do anything else because we wire it in through years of training. And that can be both through positive consequences and negative. It can be because I got in trouble for drawing on my little brother. It can also be because people smiled and said, "Great job," when I did the right thing too. So when your kid is doing the right thing, it's really important not to go and have a cup of tea and take a break. It's actually really important when your child's doing the right thing to reinforce those connections. So when you spot your child doing the right thing, you can reinforce the connections by allowing your child to have a positive emotion at the same time. That's easily done by smiling, hugging, kissing, having joy yourself and passing it on to your child. And when the child's doing the wrong thing, we don't really want them to have a big, huge emotion at all. What we like to do, and one of the really good things that you can try, is just to ignore bad behaviour. It works really well. Less wiring happens, because attention is a really good way to wire up your child's brain. So being consistent about what we want. To be consistent, you have to think about what you want, so that you know what you want to be consistent with. Having routines. Routines help you be consistent, don't they? Being a good role model. Do you remember to say please on the end of your sentence? You might think your kid's not listening, but your child is. You know, when they see you with the pen, and you think that you're just showing them how to draw something, they're firing a lot of stuff. They're thinking all about the colours and what that's like and what they're going to do once they get their hands on that pen. and what it'll feel like in their hands compared to your hands, what they're thinking is not what we are thinking. Their brains are totally different. They don't have our brains until they're 26 years old. That's a long wait. So encouraging them causes the release of strong emotion. They feel good, and feeling good makes it more likely we'll do something again. Rewards and consequences. Rewards make you feel good, don't they? There's a difference between bribing and rewarding. And bribing, the way that I've always understood it, is when you give your kids something first. So you say, here you go, here's Macca's. Now will you tidy your room? And rewarding is when you say, tidy your room first, and then I'll buy you McDonald's. It's almost the same, but a little bit different, isn't it? So we don't encourage the use of bribery, but we do definitely encourage rewarding. And it doesn't have to be McDonald's. Alright? The most simple rewards are your eyes on your kids. And that's really what this program's all about, isn't it? It's about time with your kids, connecting with your kids. Putting your eyes on your kids causes positive emotions to release in their body, making it more likely they'll remember what you're doing. Close your eyes for a second and just think about your childhood. Think about a positive memory you had. You probably weren't by yourself. Was there someone's eyes on you? You're those eyes. Later on, your children will remember things, and they will remember their parents' eyes being upon them. Now, this pyramid is important. On the bottom, the primary foundation of the pyramid is the words encourage. But you'll notice that halfway up it says set limits. Positive parenting is really important, but positive parenting is not being your child's best friend. You're not here to be their friend, you're here to be their parent, and it's quite different. So it's important to think about what limits you will set. Again, I'm going to ask you just to pause for a moment and think about the limits that your parents set. Did you like them? Did it matter if you liked them? Were they helpful? Did they shape you the way that your parents wanted to shape you to make you an adult that can survive and function well in a world? What are the limits that you will put around your children's behaviour? What will it look like for you and your family? So it's important to encourage our children. It's important to become their teachers, but it's also important to be their parent. You're the person who puts limits in place. Those limits are incredibly important. Because one day your children will grow up. They'll be an adult and they'll go somewhere like work. And if you have not experienced limit setting in your childhood, how are you going to manage in the workplace? Let's imagine that you guys went to work and just did whatever you wanted. Let's imagine that you went to work and all you wanted was praise and rewards and encouragement. It would be a little bit imbalanced, wouldn't it? You might be unemployable. So when we set limits as parents, our children will rebel, but we need to give them experiences. And being given limits is an experience. It's difficult. I don't know about you, but my kids, when I go somewhere in a car, They're like, Mum, can I get an electronic device? This is so boring. I'm like, we're driving between Kellyville and Parramatta. It's 20 minutes. My kid's like, well, that's a very long time. What would I do for 20 minutes? Can we buy that car because it's got a DVD player in it? Can I watch something while you drive for 20 minutes? And yet when I was little, my parents used to drive really long distances in very unsafe cars because seatbelts weren't around in the back seats. And we would find, when will we be there? And then we'd play games out the window. We'd look for things to spot. We'd play bingo in the back seat. We'd tell jokes. We'd sing songs. To be honest, it was excruciatingly boring. But that's a good thing. Because, you know, when I came here this morning at 8:30 and I was waiting to talk, it wasn't all that exciting in the half hour before you got here. There wasn't anything to do. But I didn't feel the need to pull out an electronic device and start gaming, because I've learned how to tolerate boredom. And my parents gave me that gift in those car journeys that I hated. So you don't have to give your child fabulously enriching, joyous experiences all the time. You do need to give them a range of experiences. Now, for my parents, they were very good at tolerating my frustration. So I do remember that along with my brother and my sister, we used to sit in the back seat and be quite annoying. We used to fight a lot, I think, from memory. Yell at each other, possibly kick and hit because there was no seatbelts to keep us apart. Not sure what we got into in the back seat, but I do know this: my parents tolerated it quite well, in a way that my generation of parents find it harder. You know, we're losing some of those skills because we're losing the experiences. So our child's development is important. It's not important just to experience happiness and know what to do when you feel good. But it's important to know how to handle boredom. It's important to know how to handle sadness, anger, jealousy, resentment. Because when you have a big happy emotion like pride or joy or love, it's quite easy. I never see anyone at my psychology practice coming in saying, I'm having far too much love. Help me. Never. And they don't come in saying, I'm just proud all the time and it makes me feel good. But people often come in saying that they're sad or anxious and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to deal with it. When they go through hard times, they need extra help. It's very normal for being human. But also, it's important that we give our kids a really rounded experience, a balanced experience that has both positive and difficult emotions. So to promote your child's emotional well-being, I am going to say this: no two children are alike. So temperament is an important thing. Some children are more anxious than others. Some children are more excited than others. Some children are more sociable than others. Children are different. I've got two. They're totally different. And sometimes they're like their parents and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're different to us too. That's great. So you can't change your child's temperament. That's part of the genetic code and it's who they are. So that means that some babies are easier and some babies are harder, right? You know, my daughter, she was one of those easy ones. It was like she read the baby book. She knew what she was supposed to do, how many hours she should sleep. She made feeding her really easy. She was a real pleasure.
And yet my son, he hadn't read that baby book. I don't know, my daughter didn't leave it in the womb for him, but he popped out, he didn't know how to sleep. And you know, he wasn't really interested in breastfeeding, which I thought was supposed to be really easy. So no two children are alike. Parenting your children is different. You can't parent two children the same way either. So just because you think you've got one child and you've sorted it out and you've learned, your next child might be totally different. So child's temperament plays a part here. Some children are easier to parent. Some babies are harder than others. They're more challenging. But the baby stage passes. Some of those kids turn out to give you an easy stage later. Sometimes the hardest babies are the most delightful teenagers. How can you help your child with their emotional well-being? Well, if we want them to have a lot of emotions, we want them to have names for them. So I want you to think about how many names you know for emotions yourself. There's a lot of research being done on this. Your children, the more names that they have for their emotions, the more they're able to regulate them. So that sounds strange, doesn't it? Particularly if you're like me and you grew up in Scotland where, well, we don't really do emotions there. Yeah? You know those Scottish people you see on TV? That's really what it's like. We're really good at being grumpy. You know, we don't do a lot of sadness. If we feel sad, we just get angry at people. That's like a real cultural thing. And Australian culture can be different. When my family come to visit here, they often say things like, wow, these Australians are so happy. What's wrong with them? Is it fake? And I'm like, no, look, it's sunny here. They're just happy. So the culture in Scotland is different. And Australia is made up of a lot of different cultures. So I wonder how your culture influences you and your family and your children. Your values might vary. How you think about emotions might vary. In some cultures, it's not appropriate to have strong emotions or display them. In Scotland, you know, when you're sad, you shouldn't really tell people. You should just act mad. It's much more socially appropriate. But it's not developmentally helpful. If you've grown up with some ideas about feelings and emotions and how they might be displayed or how they might not be displayed, and whether or not it's okay to show them, you might want to think about whether you want to pass that to your children or not. Because we know that emotional expression is really important. We know that having names for feelings is important. And to get the names, you're going to have to be able to show them to mum and dad, and mum or dad are going to have to help you work out what the name for that is. So when I'm lying on the floor having a tantrum, and I don't know what it is, it's just a huge physical feeling inside my body. It's in my hands because I'm punching, and it's in my face and I'm screaming, and it's in my feet and I'm stamping, but I don't know what that's called. I don't even know what's going on. I just want a lolly. And my mum just will not give me one. And I want it. Well, I don't know that what I'm feeling is anger, disappointment, frustration, sadness, longing. Maybe I'm having 10 different feelings. Maybe I've used jealousy a lot today, huh? Maybe I'm jealous as well of that kid over there because they've got a lolly. Maybe I'm resentful. So I don't have the words for all of this if I'm 2 or 3. To be honest, I probably don't have the words if I'm 5 or 6.
My eldest has just hit the teenage years. I thought I'd taught her all this stuff, but it turns out she doesn't know the words either. We've got to continually teach these words for years. And that can be hard, because I don't know about you, but I didn't learn this stuff at school. I didn't know that there was a lot of names for emotions. In Scotland we don't talk about this stuff. I didn't grow up with it. And yet if your child knows when they have a really strong feeling, if they know what it is, and they can link it to the other parts of their brain that hold language, your child will emotionally regulate themselves really well. And emotional regulation is a skill for life. So my tip for this stuff is just to go on Google, type in emotions chart, go to the images page, there's heaps of them, filled with all the words that will expand your vocabulary yourself. And also you can print them out. If you've got a laminator, you can laminate it and you can stick it on the fridge. Your whole family can use it. It's a great tool. So having names for your feelings is important. Having a safe place to express them is important. What's it like for you when your child brings you difficult feelings? How does that make you feel? When we talked about growing as a parent, it's not just your feelings, is it? For me as a parent, I find it much easier to deal with the really young stages of childhood. My kids' distress over not getting a lollipop is much easier than my child's distress over being excluded socially. There's some things that I find easier to navigate and some things that I find harder. Sometimes I need help and support too. But it's important our children can talk to us and have safe expression. It's also important they get enough sleep. The part of your brain that regulates your emotions needs sleep. When you sleep, you have dreams. When you have dreams, you process your emotions. When you go to sleep and you don't get enough and you wake up still tired, think about how you feel. And your kids are not getting up and then thinking, oh, I'm really tired, I'll have a coffee. Right? They're waking up thinking, I feel really tired, I don't really feel good. I don't have anything like coffee. I just don't feel good. But I've got to get through my day anyway. And contrast that to how you feel when you've had an early night and a fantastic sleep and you feel like you can take on the world. So your child's sleep is really important. There's a lot of information around about sleep and its links to mental health. And if it's really important for children, don't forget it's really important for you too. I know it's hard to get sleep when you're a parent, but there's places you can have tiny naps, like in your car, for 5 minutes, and every single one of them counts. So make sure you get enough sleep too. Diet's really important. Yeah, remember we talked about that paramedic who hadn't eaten? Yeah, you know that expression that goes around on the internet called hangry? Children get hangry too. So do parents. So diet, sleep, exercise, some of those things are the foundation building blocks for good health in the body and also emotionally too. So we've talked a bit about parenting. We've talked about development, behaviour, and how it all goes together. And when you read these beautiful workbooks that you've been given, you'll see the contents look like they're 4 different sections, but don't let that fool you because, as I hope I've been explaining, they're all part of the same thing. How you parent links exactly into your child's experiences. Your child's development influences their behaviour. Your values influence their experiences too. So when parents stay calm and when parents are resilient, we model those things for our kids. When we take time out for ourselves, we model those things for our kids. It's easy to think about the big experiences, isn't it? I mean, it's winter just now. If you go on social media, you see all these parents going off, taking their kids skiing. Their first trip to the snow. It's a big experience, and parents are thinking, wow, my kids will remember this, and they're taking a lot of pictures, and it's a big moment of, well, to be honest, most parents think it's going to be fun, but if you've ever taken your kid to the snow, it's sometimes not fun. It's sometimes quite cold, and your kids might not like it. So sometimes experiences don't go to plan, even the big ticket ones. That's where that word flexible comes in. When we plan a big ticket event for our kids, we don't know how they'll go. Remember that brain with 300 trillion neurons all making friends? So when you say, hey, we're going to someone's wedding, and it's going to be beautiful, and I need you to sit on the seat. And your child's like, okay. And then you get there, and you're like, there's the chair. And they're like, okay, but now it's really exciting. I didn't know really what you meant when you said wedding. I was thinking, like sitting on a chair, but now I'm here, there's a lot of stuff to do. There's people. And you're like, sit on the chair. Use patience. And I'm like, what is that? I've never learned that. Every time that I feel bored, you give me an electronic device, can I have one? No, because we're at a wedding. But I need one. It's funny, isn't it? How on earth did our parents cope before electronic devices were invented? So routines are good for you because they make you less stressed. Experiences are big ticket events, but they're also the tiny events that take place every single day. I went to a parenting talk recently. I wasn't giving it, I was attending it by Justin Coulthard, who's one of the parenting experts in Australia. And he said something that stuck with me. And I would like to share it with you. What he said is, how does your child wake up in the morning? What's it like for them for the first hour of the day? Does it set them up for the day ahead? And he asked all the parents to reflect on that. And look, these were parents at school, so it was a slightly different age group. But a lot of those parents said what the mornings were like was pretty awful in their house. They said from, when my kid wakes up, I basically start shouting at them to get ready. Yeah? And then I shout louder because they're not getting ready. And then sometimes I end up losing it. Or, I'm yelling at them and we're having breakfast in the car and it's all over and they're like, by the time I get to work, it's really deeply unpleasant. By the time my child gets to daycare or school as it was for that group of parents, no one is set up for the day. Or perhaps we are, but we're set up in the wrong way. So I'd like you to think about how you might change first thing in the morning for your kids. And if you have a routine, it's about making time for those things. So if you're waking up your child at 7 because you think you can get out the door at 7:30, perhaps what's going wrong is just your routine. Maybe it doesn't take 5 minutes to wake up. Maybe it takes 5 minutes to wake up when you're 25 or 35 or 45, because we put it down to a really fine art. But when you're 2, and you've got 300 trillion neurons and it's a new day, you've got a lot of thinking and exploring to do. So when mum says or dad says, can you please just put those clothes on? They're like, wow, clothes. I know I can wear them, but they're very exciting too. And did you know that you can put t-shirts up your legs? Let me try. I wonder what else you could do with a t-shirt. And you're thinking, what's going on? We've got to be out the door in 20 minutes. I'm going to be late for work. Your kid doesn't care. They're thinking, I love this t-shirt.
And in fact, now that I look around my room and see the toys, and the sun is shining, and I wonder what that toy looks like in the sunshine. And so they're off, as we want them to be. So if your morning routines are really stressful, one of the things I took from that talk is build in some extra time. Make some time. Get up 5 minutes earlier so that you can have some playtime with your kids. So they can go slow. Let's not make them go at our pace. Let's go at theirs. So maybe just about a little bit of extra time into your routines in the morning. So we're just going to finish by thinking about us as parents. What type of role models are we? I'm a doctor of clinical psychology and a parent, and I am not a perfect parent. None of us can be perfect parents. And if we all have role models, none of our role models will be perfect people either. Unless they're a superhero in a movie, and that's not real. So you don't have to be perfect, but you need to think about the role model that you want to be. So if you have problems staying calm, maybe you need to practice it so that you can role model it to your child and show them how it's done. Because we can't expect them to develop the skills that we lack ourselves. When we show patience, they learn to be patient too. When we view their mistakes as okay, they develop a growth mindset. When our kids think they have to be perfect, they don't experiment with the world, and we want them to experiment. We want them to make heaps of mistakes. We want them to learn that making a mistake is okay because you can always try again. We actually want them to learn that t-shirts can go up your legs. Because life would be boring if our kids grew up and did the same thing as us, because no new inventions would ever happen. So it's good that they think differently, and we need to allow them. So when we show affection, they develop a sense of self-worth. And when we label their good qualities, just think for a second what your parents told you that you were. Did they tell you you were kind often enough that you believe you're a kind person? Did they tell you you were thoughtful, brave, strong, resilient? What words did your parents use that you internalized about yourself? And what words will you use about your children so that then when they're adults and they think about themselves and they hear your words in their head, what words will they think about themselves? Choose a couple, use them wisely, and use them often. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Let's wire in some really beautiful words to our kids' minds. Thanks for listening this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Amanda. It's a really good talk and raised some really good points that I'm sure we can all go home and apply. One that really stuck with me was the most simple reward is your eyes on your children, and I think that's essentially the backbone of this program. The Friday connections I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on. So that is the last Friday of every month from 4:30 to 5:30 at each centre. So with those sessions you will have to RSVP because the places are limited, and you can do that through our website, which I'll direct you guys through very quickly. So if you head onto our website, there's a License to Parent tab just up here. You scroll down and then we have here RSVP License to Parent, and through that link you guys can RSVP to those Friday connection sessions. We also have the License to Parent booklet that you have with you online, a version online, and also just here we have an audio version of the book. So I'm sure a lot of you guys would be busy throughout your day, so if you don't have time to read it, you can always just put it on and listen to it on the go. Yeah, and it's all essentially just there. I'm going to give the mic over to Dr. Amanda just for a few Q&A if anyone had some questions, and then we'll finish the session off.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? We've got a bit of time, so if you do, I'm happy to answer if I can. Yes?
I thought about killing just one doctor. She was very, very good. But, I always desire to develop emotionally, mentally. But, nowadays there is something which is addiction or gadgets. That's something I really find difficult to deal with. Out of 100 times, I am successful just 5 times. Yes, so that is something I really find it difficult to deal with.
Yes, that's a great question, isn't it? So that question was about gadget addiction. We're all there, aren't we? My kid's a little bit older. I have got Wi-Fi control, I've got controls everywhere, and it's still hard. The world is changing. My parents did not have to worry about gadget addiction. I am so old that this stuff was not invented. Parenting, I think, was different. I don't know if it was easier, but it was definitely different. So gadget addiction, or just electronic addiction, is a big thing. Now, I will say this. If you go back generations of parenting, parents used to be really scared of rock and roll music. Terrified of it. If you liked rock and roll music, your kid could turn out, or if your child liked rock and roll, it was really dangerous. It turned out that it's just music and it's okay. Now, when I was a teenager, we had like headphones, and you plugged it into a Walkman. Right? I know, I really am that old. And I used to walk around, and parents were really worried we'd all be deaf, right? We'd all have no social skills because we spent our days listening to music. And here we are, we're the generation of parents, we're scared of something else. And I think it's right that we are, but also it's just a truth about the world that there's always something to worry about because the world is changing. So electronic devices are not going away. They're part of human life and they're here to stay, aren't they? But they are addictive. And that is a problem. So do you remember earlier we talked about setting limits? It's important that we teach our children good limits around electronic devices. And we can think about that in a couple of ways. We can think about, number one, I'm not sure what I did with my phone. Here it is. I have a phone. I am a role model for the use of my phone. So if my kids are talking to me and I'm on my phone, I'm role modeling that. That's what they're picking up regardless of what I say. What's the point of nagging them about being on the Xbox if I'm on my phone? So I need to start thinking about how do I use electronic devices myself. That's the first place. The second place is thinking about what kind of access will you give your kids to devices. When children use electronic devices, there's a neurochemical. So these neurons, they fire bits of electricity around your brain, but they also release chemicals, neurochemicals. And one of them is dopamine. The dopamine pathway in the brain is the addiction pathway. But it's also the reward pathway. That's, dopamine's why we eat chocolate. It's also why we like electronic devices. And electronic devices, they work really well with the brain. The way that our brain is wired up and the way that it works, it really likes electronic devices. They tend to cause a lot of dopamine to be released. It makes us like them. You know how easy it is to binge watch stuff? Or just time goes by and you don't notice? That's to do with the way that your brain is on these devices. So I think setting limits is really important, both for ourselves and for our children.
accepting that they are addictive. You know, I was reading yesterday about Apple, and they're bringing out, you know, with their newest version, I think in a couple of months, they're bringing out some new technology which you can monitor your usage of your phone. Everyone knows it's a problem, but it's not going to go away. So I don't think the answer is to take gadgets or electronic devices away from our kids, because this is their future. I would prefer to teach them how to put them down, so that they can pick them up and use them, and they become a tool for life, but they can also put them down and recognise that other things are more important. So I don't have every answer around it, and I think every family has to work out what's right for them. But I've worked with some families who have totally banned technology, and the problem with that is some of those families, they find the kids sneak around behind their back. It just becomes an even bigger deal for the kid when they do get access to it. Not for every child, because children are all different, but for some of them. And I've worked with parents who let their kids have unlimited access, and the kids self-regulate. And for the rest of us, we're all somewhere in the middle. And I don't have the answer, and it's something I struggle with myself, because I've got 2 kids. And my kids have got a heap of electronic devices. And I wish that they didn't, but then again, I love technology. So we have to find a way to navigate it, and I would say it comes from setting limits, but also getting on it yourself. So when your kid has a gadget, sit down with them, do something together on it. You know, if they've got the iPad, don't give them it to keep them quiet. Actually sit down and you can do something on there with them. Show them what technology is for. Send them off to do coding. Get them involved in technology, embrace it and put your limits in. I'm not going to tell you what your limits should be, because this is your life, it's your kids, and it's your values. And to be honest, the research doesn't have the answers yet, we're still learning. Okay, just remember that it's addictive. Does that help? There is no solution, is there?
Yes, the first step you mentioned, I don't use gadget at home. I just don't want to portray the same thing which I'm saying no to now. That's the solution I have to work around.
Well, the key word that I'd use is balance. You know, your kids have got 5 senses, and just electronic device tends to rely on your vision, and you don't want to overdevelop it. So if they're having gadget time, I'd say get them outdoors in the mud a little bit later, get them out to the park, get them listening to music, get them moving their bodies. Make sure they're not just doing one thing. You've got to hold balance. Minimise it as much as you can, but bear in mind when your children go to school, they're in school. Schools use these things, and I use them, and so do you. So they're not going to go away. We just have to put some limits in. Any other questions? Yes.
I find that my daughter, whenever I tell her to do something that she's not supposed to, her answer is almost always no. So I've got 2 questions. One is, I realize that what works at most times is, or when I'm lucky, that if I distract her or make her do something else. So my question is, how good is that a strategy? Because I want her to learn, you know, what is no and setting limits and everything that you talked about. So I want to teach her that. And 2, I've never, you know, like sent her to the corner or to the room, giving her a timeout. And so is it she's 2 and almost 2 months. So is it too late to start doing that, or is it effective to, you know?
Great questions.
Yeah.
So there was 2 questions there. Question 1 was around, is distraction useful and good for parenting when we use distraction? And the second was thoughts on timeout. What age your children should be if you use timeout and if it's effective. And I think you said, is it too late as well? So if I start with the first one, distraction. Oh look, I love distraction. There's no perfect way to parent. There are some times where you can try all the different parenting strategies and the one that works is distraction. That is okay. There is no textbook way to parent flexible parenting is possibly the best way to parent. It's looking at the situation. You know, when you're a paramedic and you arrive to the scene of an accident, the first thing that you do is you don't rush over to the screaming people, and you certainly don't go to the person who's screaming loudest. You stop, you calm yourself down, because it might be quite frightening what you're seeing, and then you decide what to do in order of priority. When you're parenting, the best thing you can do is just take a breath sometimes and think, is what I'm doing working? If not, can I try something else? Distraction's great. It's not, if distraction's the only strategy you've got, it's a problem. But if it's just one you pull out occasionally, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's a tool.
So saying no all the time, how do I teach her that there are some things that's wrong to do? And yeah, so that is one thing that I find very...
Well, distraction is just a form of ignoring as well, isn't it? So you're taking her away from problem behaviours. Yeah. So when you're causing new neurons to wire, so you're taking her away from some of those behaviours. Does that make sense? And you're using distraction to take her over and do something that you want. I see no problem with that. All right. It's also important to say no and allow your child sometimes to experience frustration and have a bit of an act out. That's okay too, because they need to, right? Remember we talked about giving them those experiences? Well, the experience of a parent saying no and then having that big frustration, anger, resentment that comes up, you know, when your kid says, I hate you, it's not nice. And as parents, sometimes we don't want to let our kids have big emotions because we don't like them. We don't like seeing them because we don't like how they make us feel. But that's a part of parenting too. We're not there to be our kids' friends, we're there to be our kids' parents. So I don't mind distraction as long as you're using a mixture of different parenting tools. The second question was timeouts. Has anybody watched Super Nanny? Yeah, a few people. So there was a really big show on TV a few years ago called Super Nanny. She used to time out the kids all the time. And a lot of her techniques were good, but one thing she did that I didn't like was she used to shame all the kids on her show. And the kids on her show were just being kids. They were being challenging, they had challenging behaviour, but they were just kids. And she used to put them in timeout and then make them apologise. Now I don't like that use of timeout. So when I teach timeout, I think about it a little bit differently. If you have a child and they're having challenging behaviour, so they're doing something that you don't want them to do, then when you're being the paramedic, you have to assess that. If your child's in danger or someone else is in danger, you need to go stop what's going on. So you need to go and you need to intervene right that second and fix it and get everyone to safety. That's pretty simple. But what happens when you get there and your child's just doing something that you don't like, that you don't agree with, that's not appropriate, but no one's really in danger? Well, I suggest you give your child an opportunity to change by using your words. So when we teach timeout, we use the strategy of 1, 2, 3, which is where we say, that's one. Now there's no point going home and pointing at your child and saying that's one. They won't know what you're talking about. You'll have to explain it to them first. But we use the strategy of that's one. So we say to the children, when I say that's one, you need to stop. And at first we might say, that's one, what you're doing is hurting someone, or that's not allowed, or that's rude, and we give them a chance to stop. How long does it take to stop? Around about 5 seconds. Okay, so you give your child a chance to stop and change. And if they don't, then we'll usually try that's 2. And we'll give them a second chance to stop, because their brains are developing and they're doing this thing where the back of the brain is saying, go for it, this is really good fun. And the front of the brain, which is still developing, is saying, Dad's really angry, stop right now, you're going to be in trouble. And the back of the brain goes,
It doesn't matter what Dad says. Go for it. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. In the front of the brain is like, Dad's really looking serious. Stop. Hands. Like, put down the toy now. And it's really hard, and the brain is going off from all directions, and your little child's trying to get control. And they might very well want to do what you've said, but the back brain is releasing heaps of dopamine. It's like, go for it, this is great, we'll love it. And they just can't stop. So if they can't stop, that's where we use what we call a time out or a time in. And it's not a punishment, it's a chance for your child to take a little bit of time and get control back off the brain. So you don't have to time them out, you can time them in. You can be like, come here, sit on my knee and have a hug, because it looks like you can't stop what you're doing. So we teach our children that they don't have to be perfect, but they do have to follow our instructions. And if they don't, there's a consequence. You'll remove them from the situation until they're back in control. And that's a great thing. Because then when they're a grown-up, they might get into a situation where they've got huge emotions, and all by themselves, they might walk away until they're calm before they do something that they regret. So I like time out. I don't like it when it's used to shame children, but I do like it when it's used as a chance for children to calm down and get control back. Because that back brain structure, it's online at birth, and it's really fast, and it runs off things like dopamine, and it's go, 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 it likes rewards. And there's 300 trillion neurons firing, they all want to try stuff. The front of the brain is the bit that finishes developing at age 26. The sensible part, it's the last part to finish developing. The back brain is fully developed pretty much at birth. So they want to do all this stuff, they just don't know how to stop. So if we give them lots of practice, that works. Now you also said, what age is it good from? It's actually good from around about age 2 to 3. Before that, they're just too young. There's just not enough brain capacity. If you've got a 1-year-old and you're like, stop, and you say, stop, yeah, they can't. They don't know how to. The front brain is barely, developing, and it's not got much language up there, and you're saying stop, and they look at you, but the back brain is still impulsing, and they just follow it through. So when they're young, you might have to physically go in there and take them out of situations. As they get older, you should be able to use your words. And ideally, if you use a message system like that's 1, that's 2, okay, that's time out or time in, or whatever you want to call it in your family, then later on, the dream is that you'll be out in public and you'll just hold up a finger and your child will be like, oh. And mum's in charge or dad's in charge from across the room, and you will feel like a superhero. But it will take some years of work. All right. So does that answer your question, Rhonda? Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
My question is related to tantrums as well. My kid is, first kid is 3.5 now. When something happens which she doesn't like, nowadays frequently she gets into start crying and go into a kind of tantrum. So I have already read about things like we prevent that happening, make her comfortable, sleep, eat, diet, and all those things. My question is on once it starts, what is the best way to manage it? Somehow I feel as a challenge, which what I believe is they should also understand that things doesn't work the way they like always. Yes. They need to understand that sometimes they need to adjust with the situation. So in that sort, she will keep on crying and do some things. So at that time, what is the best way of action to do that? Should we try to stop her from crying? And things
So 3.5, huh?
3.5.
And lots of crying when they don't get their own way. And how do you manage that? Is that right? Yes. So I do not have the answer for every single episode. So I do want you to think about that word flexibility. You won't get it wrong every time. But part of being a parent is actually learning about your child too, right? So when your child is acting out or when they're crying, they cry for different reasons. Sometimes they're crying because they're seeing if that will get you your own way. Yeah. So they're crying, but they're kind of looking up at you and they're seeing if their crying is having an effect. Does that mean if I have just a bit more tears and cry a little bit harder, that I will get the lolly? Let me try it out. So they don't know. They'll have to test it, right? Sometimes they're crying because they're actually sad or overwhelmed and they're just releasing emotions. It's hard to know, and I might not always be able to pick up in other people's children, but the more you know your own child, the more you kind of know what they're up to. So when your child's upset, it's important to think about what they're doing. When your child's crying, but it's a kind of pretend cry, because they're just trying a bit of manipulation to see if that works, which is a good thing, right? They're just developing. So they're trying it out. That's front brain stuff. That's smart thinking. They're having a go at being in control of the world. But when your child is just crying uncontrollably, that's back brain stuff. That's just emotional. Front brain stuff needs you to be a parent and to kind of put in a limit and hold your ground. Back brain stuff, the best thing for that is a hug. So when your child's genuinely upset, you can comfort them. You know, so they might not want comfort. Maybe they just want you to sit near them. Or think about when you're upset. Sometimes when I've had a tough day at work and I'm quite overwhelmed and I come home, I just really want to go in a room all by myself and watch some TV with no one talk to me. It's no real surprise that sometimes that's what kids want to do too, right? So you don't always have to solve their problems. Sometimes they just need a bit of time by themselves. Now, they might not want to go watch TV, but they might want to go to their room, have a bit of a sob and then read a book, or they might want to go to their room and play with some toys, or they might want to sit at your feet and play with toys and just have you around. You don't always have to fix their feelings. And it's hard to give you one answer because it's flexible and it depends on what's going on. So you can think about giving a hug if they want a hug, if they want that kind of support. You can also think about just letting them learn how to navigate that emotion and being around to help them so they're not alone. And you also have to be careful because, well, their brains are kind of cool and they're trying out things, and sometimes they'll try out emotions on parents. You know, like my son, he is the absolute king, of buttering up. He'll come downstairs and be like, "Mum, you look so pretty today." And I'm like, "Do I?" And he's like, "Yeah." And, I know that 5 sentences down will be what he wants. But, it's a little bit of manipulation, isn't it? It's not terrible. It's just what he's done. He's worked out that works a lot better than tantruming in front of me. So he's worked out that if you butter mum up, you get more stuff than if you get angry or difficult with her. And he just plays me. So your children are going to learn how to play you too. They're going to learn what happens when I cry, what happens when I'm angry, what happens when I smile, what gets me my own way. Yeah? Does that help?
Yeah, what you said definitely helps. Like if she's crying of a genuine reason, like if we give a hug, she's perfectly okay. But what I wanted to understand, if she keeps on crying, should I try to make her stop crying in some ways, or just leave her in that situation?
Well, look, at 3.5, you can use some really nice techniques. You can just try to name the emotion. So if you know what's going on for them, you can sometimes say things like, it sounds like you're hurt, or it sounds like you're really sad there. It looks like you're feeling X, Y, or Z. Sometimes that really helps the kids. They'll be like, "Oh, that is how I feel, Dad. Thanks." And then they go skipping, and again you feel like a superhero. But sometimes they don't know, and you don't know either, and they just actually need time to sit there and get through the emotion. Think about when you've cried. Sometimes I'll have a really tough day at work and I go home and have a cry. There's nothing wrong with me. I just like to cry occasionally. I try not to do it, at work because it's socially inappropriate. But I really like it. I feel so much better.
for other people, they do other things. You know, so I think being flexible with your daughter, she's probably working out how she manages her feelings too. But we don't want people to get stuck with their feelings, so we need to also give them a lot of different tools and how to use them. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, how to explain natural consequences when he or she is not listening to what you're saying?
How do you explain consequences?
Yeah, just examples, yeah.
So you don't need to explain consequences, you just give them.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
any examples?
Well, it's an interesting thing for parents because we want to talk a lot to our kids, right? Like, we are the generation of over-talkers. We explain to our children what's going on, and then we explain why it's wrong, and then we explain how they should act differently, and then we get surprised when they don't do it. So you don't need to explain your consequences, you just need to apply them, and your children will not like it, but they will just learn that there's consequences for behaviour. And if you're consistent, they'll learn faster. You know, when we talked about neurons that fire together, wire together? Well, repetition is the key there. So when you're consistent with your consequences, your kids learn. For example, I only write on paper with these things because there's consequences when I do other things. And it's always the same consequences. You know, sometimes your kids are much better behaved when they're at daycare, huh? Right? Do you know why? Because the rules are the same every single day. The people who are looking after your children have had a good night's sleep usually. They get to take a tea break. That you don't get to do that when you're a parent, but the staff at the childcare get to take tea breaks. They get a lunch break as well, and they get to go to the toilet without small children. Right? So they have a different experience. That means they don't forget the rules. They're not tired and sleep deprived when the child acts out. They just consistently apply the same rules, and children learn that that's the rules really quickly because it's always the same. They're always enforced the same way. It doesn't matter who they talk to. Then you go home, right? And if it's anything like my house, well, if I've worked from home that day and my kids are acting out, definitely I'll be consistent and put my rules in place and know what they are. But if I've been Skyping my family over in the UK and there's loads of stress there and I've had a tough day at work and I've got lots of deadlines and my kids act out, I might just yell instead. I will forget all the things that I know in the moment. That's totally inconsistent. Then my husband will come home and do something totally different. And if you've got grandparents here, well, they probably do something totally different again. So at home, it's much less consistent. Because sometimes we don't know what we're doing as parents. We haven't even worked out what the rules are. And sometimes we change them. And sometimes I say, no Xbox. And then my son's like, please, Mum, you're so pretty and I love you. And I'm not 100% consistent. And that makes it hard. So consistency is the key. You don't need to explain, no talking, just doing things the same way every single time. Does that help? Yeah. We'll just do one last question. Yes.
I have an elder son around 4.5 years, and last November I had a little one. And whenever the little one is falling asleep, the elder one picks a soundless toy and plays near the head, or shouts whenever the little one is going to sleep.
So he doesn't want him to go to sleep.
Yeah, we understand, but the little one can't understand. When she starts crying, that's it. I lose my patience and my wife loses the patience. We're not able to manage. He's looking for her to play with him, but this is not the right time for them to play. Either she pulls him or if he hurts her. So I'm not sure how to manage this one.
So it's really hard, isn't it? So we're talking about siblings. You know, when you have your first child, or if you have one child, I remember that time. And then you have another one. You think it will be easier because you know what you're doing. And it's just doubly challenging, isn't it? So now you're trying to put your eyes on your child, but unfortunately human beings have their eyes on the front of their head instead of one on each side, and it's impossible. And if you've got more than two, full respect, because I don't know how you do it. So thinking about that, what do you do when your children are acting up? It's about encouraging and setting limits and consequences too. And thinking about your routines. So is there ways that you can put a routine together to make sure that it works for you? So for example, if your elder child doesn't like when your younger child has nap time, can you schedule your day to work around that? So at the time of day that that younger child goes for a nap, can you schedule that that's TV time, or that's a quiet time for that child where they do something, or maybe it's a time where they go for a walk, or it's special time with dad, so that it becomes something they look forward to and they let the other child sleep. If they've got really used to having a sibling as a source of fun, right, then every time they look at the sibling, their dopamine's going off, they're like, yes. It's kind of better than an electronic gadget, right, in many ways, but it can be problematic. So I think setting a routine that works and looking at how else could you reward them. Yeah, and then also modelling it as well. Sometimes you can role model being quiet. They might not know how to be quiet. So for example, when you say to someone, tiptoe, well look, I know what you mean. I know that if you tell me to tiptoe that I should do this. And I also understand that it's probably because you want me to be quiet. But when you tell a preschooler to tiptoe, they're like, okay. So they're like, okay, I'm tiptoeing, and mum or dad's like, well, that's not what I said. They're like, yes, it is. So they haven't linked up, that means also to be quiet. So they're like, can I tiptoe to a song? So again, it's thinking about that, isn't it? Sometimes really challenging behaviours are a lack of knowledge. And then we assume, because we have the knowledge, that our children have it too. So you can do really fun role modelling where you can show what quiet means. Tiptoeing is like being very quiet. Let's use technology. Let's turn on mum's iPhone and see if it records any sound at all for 5 minutes. Children love challenges, and they'll tiptoe now and say nothing for 5 minutes, and then they'll spend 5 minutes listening to the playback. So you've got 10 minutes, which is really nice. And in that 10 minutes, maybe someone else has got your child down to sleep. So it's having fun with technology, but recognising the limits your children have as well. That sometimes they don't have knowledge or skills, or they have those things but they haven't put them together. Yeah, thanks. Good question.
Thank you so much. So I'd just like to wrap it up by saying thank you all for coming this morning. Also want to definitely thank our staff at the back who, took some time out of their weekend to help coordinate this event. I'd also definitely like to thank Shipra, our parent relationship manager, who's put this whole event together. Really hope you guys have benefited and taken a lot out of this program. Thank you again to Dr. Amanda. Thank you for your help and your talk. It was actually quite wonderful. I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.